Hi, welcome to the New Property Show. I'm Steve McMenamin.
On this show, Amir and More on Investment, our panel discusses how to build a portfolio part 2, but first, Carly on the importance of insurance.
Carly, welcome to the New Property Show.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Been trying to get you on as a guest for a while now, but you are super busy doing insurance all over Australia. You're getting a lot of good reviews in terms of being a broker. But you want to just tell everybody why insurance is so important and why you became a broker?
Sure. Why I became a broker, I'll start with that one first. I saw how other people were doing it, and the moment that I found out what an authorised rep was, I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to push my career to the top, and I wanted to do it the right way. I don't like seeing people have the bum end of the deal or get taken advantage of or have the wrong thing said and done, because that's their life. So I want to protect them and their life. So that's why I started doing what I do for myself.
Very exciting, and nice to see too, you've built up quite a professional network. You're a young lady in business. Do you have any support behind you, or are you just getting all this done yourself?
Yeah, I am the sole trader, sole lady, doing it all on my own. Yeah, I guess it's the only way it is.
And with insurance, what types of insurance should people look at? So they're purchasing a new home, let's say for example it's investment property. What do they really need to cover and why? And what can go wrong?
Sure. Landlord is definitely a must for a new purchaser if they're doing an investment property. The main reason is you've still got a mortgage to pay, so loss of rent is definitely something that they need to include. If the tenant can't be in there or the tenant stops paying, your mortgage doesn't stop. So that's something that definitely needs to be included. Also the building, if someone hits it or something goes wrong or the tenant damages it, that's still you and your property and you want to be covered for it.
Okay, and then in terms of your services there, so you go beyond, I guess, home insurance as well. I think it's important. I think at the end of the day, you need to have yourself protected. So what other types of services do you provide in your business?
Yeah, so I can do the home and contents, the cars. I predominantly do business insurance, so your public liability, your professional indemnity, your assets, your equipment, the tools, pretty much all insurance related things is where I can step in and help you.
So a few little, let's call them loopholes, but is there a couple of advantages? Say for example, you have your home, and a business as well, and you have a laptop and you spill water on it or anything like that. So I want to know that. I want to know the advantages of having insurance.
Of course.
So I heard of a case the other day. It wasn't through yourself, but someone actually spilled water in their laptop, and because it happened on the business premises, it was actually covered. And they had their laptop replaced. They're the sort of other advantages as well. I think for the small amount of premium you would pay versus a $2,000 or $3,000 item, let alone a $700,000 house, they'd be worth it.
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you brought this up actually, because it is quite prevalent at the moment.
Yep.
Especially throughout COVID, people took their items home. And under a standard policy previously, business items weren't covered. So if the laptop happened at home, for example, the laptop would be your laptop, not the business laptop. Whereas now things have evolved. Us as brokers, we have access to different type of policies. Ours definitely cover the insured items both inside the home and outside the home. It's the same with your business stuff. We structure the policy to cover it. Wherever you go, your items need to be covered, whether that's home, office, poolside, holidays, other offices, everywhere you go, we'll make sure that it's covered for you.
Okay, and just to investigate the home and contents and the house insurance a little bit further, what are sort of the 2 or 3 things that seem to go wrong? Well, at the end of the day, you've got the house insured, but really what can happen to a home? It's made out of bricks and mortar. It's got a solid roof. Is there natural forces that are happening, or what are the most sort of 3 prevalent claims that come through?
The top one is the teenagers party. The parents go away and the teenagers have a party, and either someone hits mum's wine cabinet and red wine gets put on the carpet, or they'll have candles and the candles get knocked over and something gets burnt. That's classed as accidental damage. Another one is the trades will come and forget to put tiles on the roof, so the house gets flooded. Or you've got the distracted mum and the house gets flooded. So they'll leave the bath on, they're doing 50 things at once. The bath or tap gets left running and floods the house.
What do the guys do wrong?
Where to start?
It's a whole nother show.
Yeah, whole different segment.
What about natural disasters? So I myself, I sell investment properties all over Australia. We've got places that are like some of the Queensland places that they may incur some flooding, those sort of things as well. So we've got cyclones, we've got wind, in different states are different threats.
Correct.
Are they sometimes even prior to buying a home, should they give you a call just to check what's happening in the area?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes they are flood-prone risks or high bushfire risks. We can always investigate that for them before they purchase it, but usually that has to be disclosed at the time of purchase. But yeah, when it comes to natural disasters, everywhere is different, particularly up in high North Queensland. That's definitely high cyclone risk. Others is definitely flood prone. Otherwise, you've got bushfire risk. And they're the three main ones that you get usually.
May have some referrals for you too.
Sure.
Which is good. So why a broker versus going to, like I did a loan last year, and my bank was trying to sell me insurance and just using a brand name with the name of A in it.
Yes.
And they were really pushing that for me. But I said no. But why use a broker versus just the convenience of having it done on the time?
Yeah, sure. So using a broker, we've got many, many years of knowledge across multiple different products versus one starting with A is only one. It is based on a budget level policy. So there's a lot of things that won't be included. For example, some of the budget ones won't cover escape of liquid if it comes from your shower, the sink, the basin, the dishwasher, or the washing machine.
That's where the liquid comes from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they'll really only kind of leave it open for if you run the hose into your house or it gets flooded from a neighbouring property. But they don't tell you these things. So as a broker, we already know these things. We have knowledge of them. We can investigate it and make sure that those things aren't in your policy.
Okay, and then let's say the house does flood. What happens then with accommodation for I guess the owner's got to move out for a week while it's been repaired. What happens there?
That's a bit of a grey area with some of them because what someone deems as inhabitable or uncomfortable to live in, the insurer or a bank will determine something completely different. But at the end of the day, they're not the ones that live in it. You guys are, or whoever the flood is through. So our policies will cover temporary accommodation to allow you to move out so the fans can go in and dry everything, if not have it replaced. So temporary accommodation is a part of the policy as well.
I think one of the best things that I've seen that you'd offer is that you're contactable after hours. You typically deal with an insurance company, and sure, they're going to have 24-hour hotlines, that sort of stuff as well. But the fact that you live in Melbourne, you understand the client's profile back to front, and I think you take a lot of pride in that. Have you had some late night phone calls to get some stuff fixed before?
I have, and yes, I do like to be on call because that's where, as a broker, that's my job, and that's where I'm going to step in and protect it and take over for you because sometimes people get into like flight or fight mode. They're stressed out, they can't think straight. So that's where I can step in and see what needs to be done on their behalf. Yes, I am on call, and yes, I have had a few late night ones. One of them was from the storm, it blew the roof off and the whole roof was exposed and the building was full of water.
Okay, and would you recommend young ladies going into business like you are by themselves working 24 hours a day? Is that a good bit of advice?
No, not at all. Absolutely not. Terrible business advice, but in some ways you do what you need to do because that's what the client needs.
Fantastic. I love your passion. Carly, thank you so much for being on the New Property Show. We look forward to having you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Amir, welcome to the New Property Show.
Thank you for having me here, Steve.
We've talked about suburbs and different things and IP, and we had a lot of fun with that conversation. But it was about, I truly feel it's about that balance. And if you're only buying one property, it doesn't really matter. We're not solving the Australian housing crisis. But if you're an aggressive investor and you've got the right advice, six or seven properties in, 3 or 4 maybe for capital growth and some high yield to balance them out. It's always good and a bit of fun. And then you've also got time in the market.
Exactly.
Next question would be case studies. Have you got a specific case study or anything comes to mind that you give our audience an example of a win?
Sure. Look, we always try to think out of the box and provide our clients with a large range of options and also provide them with the potential outcome of each scenario. What we've seen is that majority of investors that come to us only have one option in their mind. And for instance, we had this client who had around 1.5 million of purchasing power and they wanted to invest it all in Victoria. And after understanding their long-term and short-term goals and engaging our trusted mortgage broker and running few scenarios for them, we realized that actually they can purchase 3 properties with much higher rental income and with much higher chance for capital growth by purchasing in other states. So we've seen this based on data because we are heavily involved in data analysis. We've seen these affordable suburbs grow in value much faster and much more. Let's say, just give you an example, in Adelaide, we've seen so many suburbs in northern regions that experience 70% to 100% in only 3 years. That's massive.
Massive.
So that is why we add value by providing those out-of-box solutions to our clients. And after they saw the outcome that they can achieve by purchasing 3 properties in different states, that basically end up in having much more rental income and putting themselves in a higher position, a better position for capital growth, they were just thrilled, and they, they couldn't be more grateful about the service that we provide.
Great work, and you're very passionate about what you're doing. So it's not just a service you're providing. Some people get carried away with a fee, but they don't realise that fee they've paid, that small fee, not only have you helped them secure the property, but you've actually given them some direction for their next property, because it's always about still creating that equity for the next deal.
Absolutely.
Last question there. So this would be, any tips or tricks, or is there anything else that you want to add or share that the audience should know about your business?
I really like what you mentioned about thinking about next step. And that is what we provide to our clients, and what we really advise everyone, especially new investors, to think about their next step. Because if they make a poor investment decision, they put a ceiling on their next purchase. So strategic planning, to me and to our company, is the most important part of the deal. So we advise our clients to, first of all, define their short-term and long-term goals, and then find a strategy that works for them. And based on that strategy, choose the right property after that. Let me just give you an example. For instance, a person who is interested in development, if they purchase a property that has 300 square meters of land, it doesn't make any sort of sense. Or a person who is trying to achieve capital growth, and if they decide to purchase an apartment in Melbourne CBD, which we have oversupply of stocks, it makes no sense. But we've seen this happen every day. And that is where we emphasize on strategic planning and aligning that strategy with your selection, with your property selection criteria. So if you decide on growth, you need to align it. And based on what we've seen, I encourage investors to focus on affordable, high growth and high cash flow properties, rather than focusing only on growth or cash flow in an isolation. That helps them to better position themselves for success.
I've seen that before myself. I've presented deals that are undervalue, great returns, they're brand new, and then the mum and dad or the backyard barbecue said, hey, maybe do this deal first before you get to this deal. And they're like, well, why would we do the crappy deal to get to the next house? I said, your equity is now tied up, and you can thank them for them being tied up for 5 years, and they're out of the market. I think the strategic planning is really there, but you should really have that defined goal. Is it capital growth or cash flow? And they're the two answers. Let's think about a development deal. Do you want to give me an example where they haven't bought that 300 square metre block, they've taken your advice, they've bought a property, it's the same property, what can they do with it next?
With the 300 square metre land?
Not the 300. They've taken your advice, they've got a 1,000 square metre block, or they've bought the acreage. Now they want to develop that property. Have you done a deal like that where they've actually added yield to the property?
So development has absolutely the highest profit among other investment options, but it also has a lot of risk, and it is not for everyone. So when we analyze a client situation, we understand their risk appetite, their understanding of the market, their capabilities. Have they ever done any sort of build before? Are they familiar with development? If they are interested, and if they have that risk appetite, we can engage partners, people who know how to develop, who know how to manage risk, how to mitigate it, and that's a good partnership. But for people who don't have that risk appetite and they really doubt the development side of things and they don't have the capabilities to do it themselves, we just tell them, look, maybe it's a very good strategy for another person who knows how to do it and how to mitigate the risk and have the money for it.
If they are a developer though, they know what they're doing. What can you typically do with a property? So you're going to go 1 into 2, 1 into 4, or you're going to go up?
So based on the land size, as I mentioned again, the strategy affect the selection, the property selection, right? So if we decide to purchase something with the aim of developing it in the future, we need to engage an architect and to just have that confidence that if we purchase this block of land, we can basically build 3 units out of it. And then after doing the maths and having that due diligence and having that feasibility study just to make sure that if we purchase the land with this amount of money and include the holding cost, the cost of build and everything, and talking to our client and understanding what is the expected profit out of this deal. Because if you're going to wait 2 years and then having $100,000 of profit, maybe they can reach to that profit with another deal,
100%.
a much less risky deal.
Sometimes just do a build sell.
So that is about matching what they want. That is why I really emphasize on a strategic planning. How much profit are you after? What is the time frame of this goal? What is your risk appetite? What is your capabilities? And after combining all those information and deciding on what best work for the clients and what deal they're comfortable with, you can advise the clients to do so.
Excellent. So it sounds like if somebody was looking to do a development, they should definitely talk to you because you've got a team of advisors behind you. And it sounds like what I'm hearing behind the scenes, you might even have some people that might help fund the deal. Amir, great case study. Look forward to investigating some more deals down the track. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we've talked about the word property portfolio. I'm interested to know what you think people think that magic number is before they stop investing, okay? Everybody has a number in their head, even we would sitting here. We might say property portfolio, and that number could be 5 million for some people, 1 million for another. But if you're sitting with Kerry Packer, it's a $100 trillion deal that they want to try and do. So I think mindset gets in the way of a lot of people's in terms of their ability. But what do you think the average Australian should be aiming for now? What's the new millionaire status? Should they have 3 or 4 properties, a couple of tax deductible, good balance? What's a good goal that you would recommend setting for the average punter? Mum and dad, they want to set an example, their kids are 16. How many properties should they try and own, and what would the portfolio look like?
Look, I think there is no strategy that fits everyone, because at the end of the day, if you want to look at financial perspective, people need 68,000 as a couple who don't have any sort of debts, mortgage, nothing, to basically have a life after retirement. That is the magic number. If they want to live for 20 years, so just multiply 20 years to that 68 grand per year, and then that's the magic number. So we need to reverse engineer that number to what passive income you can achieve from your portfolio. So if you require $200,000 for you're not satisfied with 68 grand, which gives you the basic, you want to basically spend $200,000 per year. And based on how many years you want to live, we need to reverse engineer that to understand how much money you need to convert it based on, let's say, 6%, 7% of rental income per year, to understand how big your portfolio need to be. And based on that reverse engineering, you can talk about size of the portfolio and how many properties you have. This is the logic behind creating a sustainable portfolio. And to be honest, it is not a one-size-fits-all strategy, because I know a lot of advisors, a lot of property agents says 10 properties, 15 properties, but maybe you need 2. So it really depends on what you want to achieve and your desire to, level of comfort after retirement.
Okay. So the way I hear it is you're more leaning in towards the yield as the end, which is the passive, which I'd agree with anyway. What do you think a portfolio needs to look like over this side? So you and I, we're heading interstate shortly, Jamie. So I think a portfolio needs to be outside of just where you live.
Absolutely.
I'm not a big believer, and also the portfolio doesn't need to necessarily have property. It can have other assets in there as well. But sticking with that theme, where would you sort of focus? Where do you think people should go?
As in suburb states?
Let's go states and regions.
Well, currently I'd stay right away from Victoria.
Yep.
We're doing a lot in South Australia, starting to do some stuff in Queensland, Townsville, of course. I think just going back to what we were talking about before, I think having it goal-based is fantastic, but you also need to diversify as well.
Yeah.
So we've got a client as well. Started off with a couple of residential properties. Now we're looking at small commercial properties, and then we're also going to start looking at something different. Now, NDIS isn't something we've been doing, but we're looking at co-living. So diversification, being able to, and having all those different things is going to give them the ability to grow. Some might not do as well as others, but at least there's more to the portfolio.
And what do you feel with it? You deal with a few commercial clients as well. So what does a commercial portfolio look like? Let's say we didn't talk about new property. We're talking about factories. We're talking about leasing spaces. We're talking about co-working spaces instead of co-living.
Yes.
We're buying office spaces and we're buying shops. You'd have a lot more experience than that than I would, because obviously you've done the deals.
Yes.
What are the yields like on a portfolio that wants to be built that way? And what strategies, how do you find not necessarily a white collar worker, but how do you find the mindset of that typical type of buyer versus a residential?
It really depends on the actual commercial space. You have commercial leases that are like factories that don't fall under the Retail Leases Act, where a lot more goes. Land tax, for example, is recoverable under those leases. You got leases under commercial space, running a restaurant, or just any retail business, that you can't claim land tax. So it depends on what your comfort level is. In terms of yield, it varies. You get some 7%, 8%, 9%. Really varies from place to place and type of tenant you have. And the value really is personal. What someone's prepared to pay will depend on what their need is. And I guess this is what Kaz was saying, that you put it out to the market and you see what you get back. But for me, even if I go back to residential a bit, it's important from the outset, before you even start building your portfolio, to understand what you're trying to achieve. And that could be whether, even if you're buying an investment property, whether you have plans to move into it at some stage. Because if you do, it might not be the best idea to purchase it under a trust or through a company, because then you will pay full capital gains if you're ever going to sell it, or if your estate then sells it after your death. So these are things that you need to really sit with your accountant, your financial planner, your lawyer, and work out what your plans are. You might plan on developing a site, both commercial or residential. What does that look like? What are the implications? Should I purchase it under one entity or set up a new entity? Because you don't want to be transferring midway and pay stamp duty all over again. So it's important, before even considering the yields, to work out what your goals, aspirations are, and what your future plans might be for that site.
And I think it's really important as well, touching on that, is to work with financial planners, make sure that you've got a great strategy and always be reviewing it.
I think having somebody just applying the strategy, like reviewing the numbers, having the asset protection is obviously most important, but we haven't really had too many, I guess, on this show, property coaches. But I do think that if you're going to seek advice, typically you seek it from people that are actually doing what you want to do. And we've touched on mentors before as well, but look, I think the most important thing there is just having a goal to be in a better position than you were yesterday and keep moving forward. But I think it's a really great topic. As I said, there's a lot of skills sitting at the table, and I can tell you that I'd want you guys and girls on my team. And it's been a lot of fun, good debate, and we'll talk about the property market moving forwards for the end of 2024 soon. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
And that's all for this week. Thank you for joining us. If you want to see the full interviews, check out our website, and we'll see you again next week.